fight belong? What purpose what we here for?
It's not like the other one. This fungus, it must allow us to communicate telepathically, somehow connecting us.
All right, we're going to go ahead and start recording. What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to T3G. My name is Dalibor. This is the Tangents Podcast, and today I'm joined by two very special guests, Zach and Vish here from Deep Theory Studios. If you guys don't know, because I didn't, I'll be honest with you. I didn't know about you guys. Looking at your socials, you guys haven't been around for a long time. You know, like you just appeared 12 weeks ago, and here we are, 93% funded. With what, 11 days to go?
Yeah. We're pretty fresh, at least to the social media environment. Zach and I have been working on our craft and honing in on that for years, but just the sooner we got to the launch is when we set up our Instagram and kind of determined that all right, we need to start getting this out there more, out to the people of Instagram at least.
For sure, man. It's interesting. The concept is very interesting. I like I like exploring kind of an alternate, past idea. I'm not a big fan of historical fiction where it's like, here's what happened, like the Saving Private Ryan's, the World War II stories. I'm not a big fan of it, but certain periods always intrigue me because then it's like a cause and effect. Like if you move this domino this way, how does the rest of it fall? Where does humanity go if you change the origin story? So that's super intriguing to me, and I was just really excited because I was like, I'm a big fan of supporting indie creators. I'm an aspiring indie creator myself. I've got a script one day looking for an artist, and to be able to just give anybody a platform is just a pleasure, honestly. Now, I want to ask real quick, where did this idea come from?
Yeah, so it's kind of it goes way back. So we had this original idea of creating this, it was an ambitious 20-issue series. And we sort of we would meet up at Barnes & Noble and get together and just bounce ideas off of each other. And then, it sort of sprouted from that because when we started this original series, not this one on Kickstarter, but the original, that's when we were like, you know what, we don't have any followers. So how are we going to, build a fan base pretty much. And so we wanted to do something fun in creating an anthology where we could both share our own stories and our own experiences and just see if we can, jumpstart from that and build a following from that first. So, yeah.
That's awesome. I love the anthology idea. That's actually the only time I've ever personally been published is in an anthology. And prior to that, I had never made a comic book. But I don't know if you guys have heard about the 100 Days of Making Comics. It's kind of like a self-challenge. Like you spend 100 days, 30 minutes a day on your own projects.
Yeah, that sounds familiar.
It was one of those things. I did it because I'd had this concept for a long time, and I'm like, I'm gonna write this script finally. I'm gonna make this script, finish it, and then start looking for an artist. And I did that. So kind of everybody that finished 100 Days Challenge, the group was kind of like, we should do an anthology. And I was like, let's do it. I was just so hyped from finishing the script. I was like, let's go. And then I was like, I've never made a comic book before. I've made a panel here and there. So it was fun. I did a little 8-page deal. I look at the whole kind of volume. I'm like, I'm the worst guy in here, but it was so exciting to just be able to complete something and be like, hey, I have this thing that I did. And out of that, I
Absolutely.
started this project, this magazine that I'm calling The Catalyst. First issue came out in October. Well, in November, it was supposed to come out in October. It's meant to be a quarterly magazine where I promote indie people. It's a free mag. It's going to be, it's delivered via website and via email. And it's just kind of like smaller versions of what we're doing here, quick interviews, just kind of shout outs to people. We had 4 or 5 different people featured in the first issue, working on the second issue right now. It's going to be quarterly, like I said. So that it also gives me an excuse to write, because it's also kind of, there's also prose content. So I wrote like the first chapter that people get to read in the like my universe, the Wolfpack universe. So it's like, it's a couple different things for me, but I just really like kind of bringing people into a new audience. Like I like, that's my thing. I just really like getting people shouted out, because like there's a lot into creating a comic book and into creating any kind of work, and I hate to see something like not get the attention it deserves, and yours definitely deserves it. I mean, like, beautiful artwork. I love this box idea, by the way. This like the Gold Collector Club. It comes in this wonderful box. It's just like this trippy, like, I don't even know what, like an acid trip. That's what I'm looking at. Like, if I've ever had one, which I haven't. It looks like an acid trip on a cover, and it looks dope.
That about sums up a lot of what we kind of wanted people to get out of just the comic itself too. So I'm glad you're getting that from the other pieces of, merchandising that we have. But first and foremost, man, we appreciate people like yourself doing these kind of things. This is Zach and I's first Kickstarter, so we kind of went into this with, not really knowing what's going to come out of it. And I say ever since we launched, we just had a great outpouring of support, just friends, fam, and even other creators on Kickstarter, have reached out, such as you did, so we appreciate that. It's definitely a really nice, tight-knit community, it feels like.
Dude, absolutely. Like, it's definitely one of those things where you see everybody kind of does niche, and everybody kind of does group up a little bit, and you see kind of these guys, they've always worked together, and they promote each other or whatever. But then just lately, the last like 6 months to not even a year, like really the last 6 months, I've seen on Kickstarter especially a lot of people just cross collaborating, like, here's like this digital bundle, and here's like samplings from all these various other people. So just like, you buy the digital book for somebody, and then they get 6 other issues from people you've never heard of, and that's super dope. Like, just kind of getting that exposure, the cross collaboration, which is just, I think that's, it's like beautiful. Yeah, it's beautiful, it's wonderful. I love it.
Yeah, it is.
So I saw the artist used to work on DC stuff, right? Teen Titans?
I think he did like a special. He did a one-shot issue, I think, for Teen Titans. He's done some layouts for them. He has more work that might be more well known over at Aftershock Comics.
Oh, okay.
So he's done Fujitsu's one of them, and then the Beyonders is another. So he's had stuff that's been kind of published and out there, and he's worked with other writers and stuff. But he went to the Kubert Art School too. So
that's dope. That's one of those things I remember from my childhood, like reading in the Wizard magazine. They would always run ads for it, and I was like,
oh yeah, they still do.
I wonder if this thing actually works. Like,
it does. It's kind of funny because you can see the Kubert style kind of in Wes, our artist, his style too. Kind of bleeds over into that. So.
100%. It has a classic nostalgia feel, which is why I love these the variant covers you guys are doing with this kind of like retro pulp style. I dig that so bad. Like, that's so dope.
We're big fans of that, man. So we had to do that.
It's fantastic. So is the artist somebody that you found, you vibe with or whatever, or was it somebody you already knew?
No, we found him. We didn't know him prior to this. Where was it, Zach? Art Station?
Yeah, we had on Art Station, yeah. Just browse and we just hit him up just to see, it seems like he was pretty established. He had, sure how much of a following he had, but I mean, his work looked really good, and we were like, well, you know, it might be a long shot, but let's just go for it and see what he says. So,
Yeah, we didn't have necessarily like high hopes for it because we saw his work and like, okay, this dude's had stuff published by Aftershock, and you know, but we were so drawn to his work, and we were like, all right, screw it, we might as well try it, and he was open, so
And that's you know
yeah,
that's the worst you can get is no, right? So you gotta
yeah,
give it
you
that
got to
shot.
try.
You gotta give it that
exactly.
shot.
Exactly.
Now I think that's something where a lot of like myself, like I said, I'm just a writer. My art skills, I learned a long time ago that I can't draw a symmetrical piece to save my life. So that's not production quality. Like I can't reproduce the same piece of art more than once. So I was like, I'm gonna need to find somebody, and it it is imposing. Like as somebody who has an idea and maybe even a script, and to go to somebody and be like, hey, do you want to draw my stuff? Like it's an I don't even know what the word is, but like it's hard to kind of get out there and be like, hey,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
Oh yeah,
especially if you ain't got no money, right? Especially if you ain't got no money, because name of the game is money. Like if you could pay somebody,
yeah,
anybody will work for you. Like if you could,
oh
if you
yeah,
already have the money, anybody will work for you. And it's one of those situations where Kickstarter, I think, brings that opportunity where it's like, hey, I got money for 3 pages. Let's preview it and let's get the rest of the money.
yeah.
And is that, I mean, if you don't mind me asking, is that kind of the situation here? Is like you guys, paid ahead for some of the book to be done, and then you're getting the rest of the money from the Kickstarter, or exactly like how's that working? If you don't mind sharing.
yeah. No, we don't mind. It's fully funded. It's the issue. The last 7 pages are being done right now as we speak. So it's something that we've been working on, and we had funded this year, and we wanted to have the comic close to being completed at launch. So um, yeah, we fully funded it ourselves prior to launching on Kickstarter.
I feel that. And I think that also brings a little bit more of a security to a project
Hmm.
from a consumer perspective. I have a couple projects that have not been delivered. That did not have stuff done. Had maybe some preview art, and it was kind of the idea was being sold more so than the product. And there's some things that are just not. I don't know if I'm ever gonna get my hands on them, but it is nice that, like I said, you have these beautiful preview pages, and it's fantastic. It's just like not even reading it, I want to stare at this page for just days. Like this is a beautiful page.
Is that the last page?
Yeah, the third one here.
Oh, okay. All
Yeah,
right.
with just I'm sorry. You guys don't see what I'm looking at. Yeah,
Yeah.
so the fourth page or fifth page or whatever that's here, with the reds and the oranges, it's such a beautiful layout. It actually reminds me of who was it? Is it, I always want to say Gene Ha, but I feel like it's not Gene Ha. Who did the Promethea books.
Well, you're close. Half of Prometheus, Alan Moore. Um,
Yeah. I mean, I know who wrote it.
yeah.
uh,
Well, so what I'm getting at is that if we're looking at the same page, is it a kind of trippy?
yeah,
Is it the last preview page? Okay, that's
yeah.
actually supposed to be a homage to Swamp Thing, Saga of Swamp Thing.
Uh,
So Swamp Thing and Abby Arcane's in the Swamp Thing comics have this kind of same type of trippy, romantic type, trip,
I know what
so
you're
to
talking about.
speak.
I know what you're talking about because they reproduced that I'm not even talking about the new show. I'm talking about the classic
Oh
80s,
yeah,
90s. They
yeah,
reproduced that. It was I
yeah.
always thought, even as a kid, I was like, are they fucking? Like, what is happening right now? I was like, is she fucking a tree? Like,
Yeah.
what is going on right now? It was so
That's
strange.
hilarious.
But no, I get that. I see that for sure. And it's fantastic. Like I love it. I love the just the feel of the whole thing. There's a page, and that is that is the Alan Moore thing, right? The kind of trippy out there perspectives. There's a
Hmm.
2-page spread. It took me like 10 fucking minutes to find it in my digital collection of Promethea, but like there's a 2-page spread, and it's a Mobius strip, and it goes
Ah,
across both pages, and it's like just like you have here, the stuff's typed out sideways. You got to flip the book to read it, and it was
oh
the
yeah.
weirdest thing because I originally read that with like library copies. Like I borrowed the books from the library. So like I'm flipping over this library copy, just trying to
Yep.
just trying to read this issue. But it's just I dig that because that forces you to be kind of an active participant in reading a comic book, and I dig that. I dig that.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah.
It's
Yeah, it's like interact, like
Yeah.
more just engage to, yeah, exactly, participate into the reading and the experience of reading the story. So
Yeah, because I won't lie, there are some books, even like some of my favorite books, where like I go through and I was just like, did I read that issue? And I know I did. Like I'm
Yeah.
reading it weekly, and I get the next issue, and I was like, did I read last week's? What happened last week? Like, because some
Yep.
stuff, the way it's presented, is not. It's not really like grabbing. Not every issue is a hit. So
Mhm.
having that element of really being kind of forced to do something, you have that mechanical memory of, I had to do this to read it, and then you're gonna tell people about it. Even like, man, I picked up this
Exactly.
book. I got to turn it sideways. And I feel like that was part of the kind of the appeal in the '90s. You had damn near everybody in X-Men. You'd have to flip the page for the 2-page spread because they did horizontal panels for whatever reason it was. So you just have these wide panels, and they're 2 pages long, and you're just like,
Yeah.
wow, I'm trying to read, man. Like,
Yeah,
that's-
that was a major point for us too, was to make this really just a good, great reading experience. And in addition to just that homage page, we have Zach and I created our own alphabet or alien language.
that's awesome.
yeah,
And so that'll be sprinkled in throughout, this issue and the next 4 issues, and it'll be something that readers can like, transcode. We'll be given hints and stuff like that. So
Dude, you are.
we're big fans of that type of stuff. I myself, especially, love anything that makes me go above and beyond outside of just reading something. I don't mind it. Some people might, but
Dude, I'm
I just
right there with you. I don't know if you see. I don't know if you guys are X-Men fans, but this is the current, this is the
Hickman,
Krakoan
man.
alphabet. I made this shirt. I made this
Oh
shirt
man, I love it.
actually to it's their rules, their laws that they
Yep.
laid down from day one.
I'm a big
And
time Hickman fan, man.
dude,
So
that's
I'm right there
it's
with you.
so hyped about this current run. But so I
Yeah.
did this, and I did it as a fundraiser T-shirt on Teespring. So if anybody's listening or watching, if you want to, it's 100% profit go to the oh my god, I can't think, Hero Initiative, which supports comic book creators in times of need. So it's 100%. I don't take any money off of it. I was just like, I really wanted to wear this, but I was like, I feel bad selling somebody else's creation, because like this is like, I didn't make this, alphabet. The most I did was organize these letters in order. So like I didn't really do anything, but I was like, I really want to wear this, but I was like, how do I do this without selling someone else's work? And I was like, well, if we make it a fundraiser where it's going to benefit comic book creators, I'm down for that. So that's available on the it's linked in the description and in the down below, as you will, on YouTube. So, but yeah, it's that's so cool. I'm like deep into that stuff, because there was I'm friends with Mark Brooks on Facebook, and they sent him, because of Ten of Swords, they sent him this book. It's like a moleskin book, and it said Ten of Swords 2020, and then it said a statement in Krakoan, and I sat there for like 5 minutes trying to read it. I'm like, I'm so close. I know like most of the letters, but it was just kind of like, that's my shit. Like I really dig, like, just digging into the lore and kind of exploring that universe. So I appreciate that, having that. You do the oh man, I don't know what the word is. I swear to God, I feel like every time I hear somebody forgot stuff for COVID, I'm like, I fucking got COVID. I swear to God, I keep forgetting shit. Like, I appreciate the like initiative. I don't know, that's a stupid word, but like the initiative of like creating a whole language and a whole alphabet.
Yeah.
Like I dig that, dude. That's so fucking dope. Like it's one of those things where you feels like a lot of people are gonna take it for granted when they're reading it. They're like, all right, cool, like he put some characters or whatever. But like when you know that there's like a whole meaning to it. I mean, like when you think back, like Lord of the Rings is one of the greatest stories ever told, one of the most popular stories ever told, and that man created
Absolutely.
an entire language, and I think more than one.
Yeah.
Like it just he spent all this time Now, there's something to be said about the length of that project, because there was, back then they used to pay by the word, and they put them out in those like weekly pulps or whatever. So you got paid by the word. So that's why it's like 1,000 pages long, and that's why everything's so wonderfully and beautifully described.
Yeah.
Because he was trying to make that money,
Yeah.
and I'm not mad at him. But I'm never gonna read it because that's a lot of damn reading. But I like the movies. I like the movies, and I like the universe of just And I'm really more of the process junkie. I like when this is a trade, which is when I'm gonna be buying the physical. By the way, I don't, if anyone's watching the video and notice that I only bought the $7 digital copy, is because I don't collect floppies. I don't collect floppies. I don't collect singles. So I'm here for the trade, but I wanted to support you guys, and
We appreciate that.
I'm super down for this,
yeah.
dude. I'm hyped for it, and it's definitely the kind of thing where I think people are gonna really enjoy it. It's intriguing. It kind of, it's got that little bit of Prometheus flavor, where it's like, where did the world come from? Where did humanity come from? Kind of thing. It's got just like little flavors of different stuff, and there's always, we always wonder about our monkey ancestors and what the fuck they were up to. So like, like I dig that. I just, man, it's super. It's beautiful. I'll be honest. It is far and above some indie books out there, and I'm not meaning to disparage anybody's work out there. I believe there is a equation where it's the quality being put out, the visual and the storytelling, and just the overall presentation, and how good your actual project is going to be. Like, I think if you are just, there's certain levels of quality that I personally look at, and I'm like, all right, I mean, you're doing your thing, but like, it does not inspire confidence, and it does not really inspire my wallet, is what I'm saying.
No, we appreciate that, man. I mean, go ahead, Zach.
But yeah, no, I was just gonna say, yeah, we wanted to take it to another level where it's not, your average comic, and it's not your average, story or topic that everyone regularly discusses. So we wanted to like dive deep, and also, have people with us to explore those ideas, because we think those ideas are important, because that is what makes us who we are, is just like searching for who we individually are as people, and where we're going, and like what is the point of anything, right?
Yeah.
100%.
But it's really cool, like just being able to share this with everybody too. So
I dig it, man. It's super dope. Before this, now you said there was a beginning. There was the first version of this. Is that something that can be maybe part of a trade, part of a hardcover one day? Like, is this something is there a script? Is there a finished product? Like,
yeah, it's kind of funny, because as we were like, the second that we decided to go with the anthology, we started to think of an overarching theme for the whole anthology. Glue all of the shot issues together. So when we started doing that, exploring those ideas, this overarching theme just became so complicated that it did become, at a time, its own in itself. Break it down into a 3 to 4 act structure that we could possibly use it for something else. But originally it did. It's funny you mentioned Prometheus, because it reminded us of that. No, we didn't. We're huge fans of like movies like Prometheus, but as we started creating, we were like, whoa, all of the things that inspired us, like when we were younger and we were kids, or even up until now, before we started creating like what we created, like it all comes into play, and like has a role in whatever we express, which is pretty interesting. I mean, it goes for everybody too, all creators, writers and artists too. So
Absolutely, absolutely. I think we see it a lot in film, especially in when people start analyzing
Yeah.
newer films and newer movies, and it's like, oh well, this director clearly was influenced by this, classic '70s or '50s or '40s, creator. There's a, I was just watching something, I forget what it was, but they were talking about how the creator definitely really wanted to. Oh no, that's that's what it is. Whitney Moore. Do you know who Whitney Moore is? She's an actress. She's not like major, but she's an actress out of Hollywood, and she was in this film. Basically, it was basically this dude's take on The Birds by Alfred Hitchcock, and it was terrible, horrible. I watched it on. I didn't watch the movie because God, I couldn't. Just a few clips I saw. I was like, no, this is not a movie you could watch. But I watched it on the Corridor Crew. I don't know if you guys know who those guys are. They're like the VFX guys. They do react videos.
Oh, okay.
They do all sorts of really cool stuff. So they were like, we're gonna take this really terribly, like their effects in that movie were terrible. So they're like, we're gonna take this movie with terrible effects. We're gonna put some better effects in it. And they got her in to like shoot one more scene to kind of like shoot this like awesome final battle scene. And she was talking about how the director referred to himself as an auteur and was like not shy about him basically being 100% influenced by Alfred Hitchcock. And it was like this dude was trying to be Alfred Hitchcock and like basically out his first movie. And it was just hilarious because I'm like, you see that, like you see subtle things in modern films where somebody's like, oh, this is some, Tarantino influence, like a little bit of Tarantino. You see a little bit of, Spielberg or whatever, like little things where I'm honestly not deep enough for that, where I can't get that. When I'm watching I'm watching a movie and I love it. If there's a good reference, is a good reference. But other than that, like, I can't like break down the act structure. That's just not my personality type. I don't know. Like I don't have the intelligence for it. And but like when I see people talk about it, when I see people analyze it, I'm like, yo, no, that's real. Like like it's like somebody just like telling you the thing that's super obvious to everyone, and you're like, yes, that's true. Like I dig that because I see the same thing in X-Men comics. Like I keep referring to X-Men because that's my shit. I've been an X-Men fan my whole life.
Yeah.
And,
same here.
And so like I listened to Explain the X-Men podcast, and Jay and Miles they are wonderful in their intricate analysis of just like everything about the books, the way it's written, the way it's drawn, like the politics behind and how it influences everything, like all of that stuff. Where I'm just like, nope, it's a great book. Awesome read. Like I'm just not there. But then since I started listening to it, I kind of see some of the things. I see the influence even from Liefeld. I see like the jokes being made inside the book about the old eras. And I'm like, man, this is, like I wouldn't have caught this before, but it's just like, I that influence is 100% there. And I'm curious to see once I finally get my book out one day, where that'll be. Like, I don't even know what my influences are. I read all sorts of different stuff. My favorite is X-Men, but I don't even know why that is, honestly. But I love teen books, and my book is a teen book, but my book is not superheroes. My book is bad guys versus worse guys. There are no good people in my book. Like my it's called Wolfpack, and they're mercenaries. So like they're in it for the money, like everybody's getting killed. There's a lot of blood to be shed. So like I don't even know where the influence is coming from, but I'm interested to see what people are going to say about it.
I mean, that's the beauty of comics, really, is that I've always been a big time comic fan ever since I was a little kid. I've loved X-Men. I grew up on all those animated series as well. But I didn't really get into reading comics until maybe 5 years ago or so. And like as a kid you'd read it, but you don't understand it. I can't read Swamp Thing as a kid and realize it's a romantic gothic. It's poetry, But that was probably my first experience, just reading Swamp Thing by Alan Moore. And that's what really was kind of the turning point for me, at least, where I realized that you could do so much with the comic book medium. And then it's not just Cape's stories, it's not a
Yes.
hero story. You can write whatever you want. And then I stumbled onto Image Comics and realized, oh man, all these comics, not all of them are about superheroes, which is crazy. And that's really truly what inspired me, is realizing that you could write so much more than just a Cape story. Not that you can't do a lot with Cape stories, because you can. It's been proven. But yeah, I mean, so it's pretty cool that you're writing a story like that,
Zach, what about you?
because that's what comics are.
Yeah, Zach, how did you get into comics? Is that you've always been a fan,
Uh,
or?
Not always. So my cousin actually, my older cousin, he's always been into comics, and he always gave me his hand-me-down Wizard magazines.
Hell yeah!
So I would always look at the cool art, and sometimes I would go to places downtown in Fairfield. I don't know if you're familiar. Well, actually, no, you're from Chicago, so
No.
yeah. So in downtown Fairfield, just a small town. They used to have like not sure if it was a comic shop, but they would have all these old comics, and I loved that look, that vintage, just
Smell.
collecting like those comics. There's just something about it, and it really just takes you back to a time that you feel familiar with. At least for me, but yeah. So I actually didn't like read comics avidly. I didn't get into them, but I did collect them. And, I browsed for the artwork. I am an artist too, so that's really where a lot of my influence comes from in that aspect. And then when Vish and I reconnected, this was like after high school. He just reached out, and we started talking about comics. First, it was comics, and then he had an idea of creating a comic based on one of his sleep paralysis experiences. I don't know if you're familiar with sleep paralysis.
Yeah, no,
or,
that's very interesting. Like I don't like.
yeah, he reached out to me, and then we just started like, brainstorming off that, and so that's how the original idea came from. And then we started. And then he got me into reading comics. Like, he would let me borrow all of his comics, and I would just dive into them. And like Jeff Lemire, just like beautiful stories, and the artwork as well. So yeah, it's just amazing what the comic book medium and the artists and the writers and the colorists and letters have to do to put into a comic book, because it's producing, directing, it's just like everything. It's everything. And so like I've developed a deep appreciation for that. So yeah, it's been really cool experience.
That's awesome. Like I'm a big fan of the process as well. Like I collect sketchbooks, like mad sketchbooks. I like, for me to see how somebody came up with a design is just as interesting as reading the story. So like,
Oh yeah.
I love that. Like when there was a Wizard issue, I don't even remember when, but there was a Wizard issue once where they interviewed Jim Lee about Wildcats, and he was talking about how he came up with Maul in the 7th grade, and he never changed the design. And I was like,
Wow.
that makes sense.
Yeah, you look at it
It's
now.
Hulk with horns on his back. I'm like, that seems like a
Yeah.
7th grade thing. Like,
Yeah.
so I love that. I love that process. I love kind of seeing where the ideas come from. Like, to think that this came out of a conversation about a story based on a sleep paralysis experience. Like, that gives me so much more intrigue already just to read that. That's so dope. Like, man, I've seen videos, and I've seen people talk about sleep paralysis, and is, if you don't mind talking about it, like, is that like a recurring situation for you, or?
Yeah, no, I don't mind. it was something that I dealt with a lot during high school and after high school, and it's one of those things where if you don't understand what's happening, it scares the shit out of you, man. And
I
just like
bet.
you've probably heard, right? I don't deal with it so much now. If I have it now or it pops up, um, it's not so much of a deal because not so much of a big deal rather. It's because I'm kind of comfortable and I understand what's happening to my body and I know what's going on. But what really sparked it for me and why that became a kind of central point for me wanting to write about it is that when I got back into reading comics, I browsed Reddit all the time, and when I started getting back into the comic scene and reading things, I'd always go on there and try to see who's the hot writer or what should I read, or ask for recommendations and stuff like that. And Tom King was just like on fire. And I'm sure you're familiar with Tom
Yeah, yeah,
King,
yeah, for sure.
but and so I picked up a lot of his books, and I became a big fan, man. And he had to ask me anything on Reddit. So after reading things like The Vision and Omega Men, him taking these B C list characters and giving them this crazy story, captivating story.
Vision was a
Um,
trip. Yeah, the Vision story
it's a
was a
trip.
trip.
It's a trip because people only know Vision from like the Avengers movies. If you're outside of comics, right, you don't realize what you can do with a character like that.
For sure.
So he had to ask me anything on Reddit, and I was like, all right, I'm gonna ask him what's the inspiration for these stories. And he actually responded surprisingly, and he said that I write about what I fear the most. And I said, okay. So that gave me a little bit more to go off of, and I was like, that's interesting that it takes something that I'm fearful of, and not necessarily putting others and giving them that fear and handing it off, but just giving them and educating them on it and giving them an understanding of what I was going through. So that's really kind of what sparked the whole thing. So shout out Tom King, thanks you, man.
That's dope. That's super interesting. I like, man, hearing that, like, to write from a position of the stuff that you fear, man.
Yeah, it's different. It's
Yeah,
different. I never had even once thought about writing about something like that, but when I started thinking about it and kind of deconstructing that idea and what fear is and its purpose in our life, I'm like, wow, you could do a lot of stuff with this. And not trying to be dark or anything like that or edgy, but it's just I feel like sleep paralysis is one thing that people probably have heard of, might not have experienced. It's not like it's rare, but it'd be cool to show people, what it is and how I
absolutely.
dealt with it. And through the comic book medium, you can do a lot of things. The
Dude,
art speaks for itself. So
100%, 100%. That's something I've come to realize more so in the last year, more than ever. I've come upon, there's like way more like established indie producers and companies that I realized, like, I knew Boom, Dynamite, of course,
yeah,
Image, Dark Horse, but there is Europe Comics is doing some crazy stuff. Vault is doing some crazy stuff. Like, there's all
well,
these companies that are just coming out of nowhere and they're swinging hard, but they're touching on stuff that is it's not your superhero stories, it's not your mythology stories. It's stuff like you're talking about, like stuff based on fear, stuff like just different perspectives, just different experiences, and it's very it's been very eye opening, honestly, for me, because I just I'm
yeah,
reading stuff that I'm like, I would never have read this before. Like, I would never have thought to read something about this before. But I was like, the art looks interesting. Let me just start reading, and then you become captivated. Like, you're like, what's
yeah.
next? What's going on? Like, there's a what's it called, Tartarus. I always forget who the writer is, but I think that's under. Is it under Image? I think it is.
What's it called?
Tartarus. It's really interesting. It's like this super. It's like post space colonial future humanity kind of thing, and it's set on and around this prison planet, which is called Tartarus. And just
Okay.
very, very interesting, like how it's executed, what it's talking about. Just it's like it's like familiar themes in a very unfamiliar setting. Like, you know, there's all sorts of weird shit that they're dealing with, and they're like doing liquid metal and shit, and like stuff that I can't even comprehend necessarily. But it's like the stuff they're dealing with, like trust and betrayal and survival, just like the ability to place like stuff that's commonplace into these like extreme environments and essentially like teach the lesson or tell the story without being preachy necessarily, or just without mundanity. Like certain stuff is boring. Like if you just like sit down and, you know, do a dissertation on trust, that's gonna be boring. But like you do a good story, you know, like Walking Dead, I think, is a really good example of that, where there's a whole lot of trust and betrayal. And I actually just finished the 100. There's a great line which like sums up the whole series, and I was like, wow, 7 fucking seasons. Someone finally just gave me a perfect recap of the show. And one of the characters says, "We've all done bad things, some of them to each other." And I was like, shit, that's it. That's the whole show. That's literally the whole show.
Yeah.
We've all done bad things, some of them to each other. And I was like, fuck. But like that show ended in such a beautiful way. And the whole thing is about trust and betrayal and belonging, and, you know, but it's set in this, you know, post-apocalyptic, let's throw the kids to the wolves and see if they survive. Like it's a very interesting story, and the way it's told. When it started, I was laughing because I was hanging out at my mom's, and she just always has the TV on. I turned around, and I didn't know what channel it was on. I didn't know what show it was, but I was like, well, let's just take stock real quick. It's a bunch of pretty young people. It must be the CW. And I was right. But like,
nice.
I dig the taking of like deeper concepts and stuff that, like you said, fear is a very, very weird place to come from, to try to tell a story. Like, because it's you put yourself in a vulnerable position talking about fear, especially your own fears, and to tell a story out of that is very interesting. I'm like, I myself am now inspired by that. Like I dig that. I dig that. Like I've always felt like all of my stories end up having superpowers, and now I'm wondering why. like, you know, now I'm having a little introspection. So as you guys are relatively new to comics, wow, 5 years. That's like 10 years. I'm obviously much older than you. I'm 37 now, and that's like I've been reading since '96. Like I remember I was out on a road trip with my uncle, and he bought me a Spider-Man book, and it was one of those things like I knew Spider-Man from the cartoon, and I was like, hey, let's see what this is about, and it was mid Clone Saga. So I don't know if you guys know anything about it.
I know about it. Yeah, I know about it.
It was, you know, Ben Reilly was Spider-Man. I was like, where the hell's Peter Parker? I was like, wait, he's married. She's pregnant.
He's blonde now?
So it was kind of a shock to the system to come into like everything is different. So it just kind of opened my eyes to the possibility back then. And then the 2099 books were still in swing, and I didn't know anything about that. So I saw Fantastic Four 2099, and I was like, what? They don't even look at all like the show. Like, nothing's the same. Why is there a robot? Like, I was so confused. But, like, coming into that and then just living through what I feel like the late 90s, I feel was a stellar time for comics, just because it was like trying to make up for the early 90s where they just kept trying to like whip out those number ones and create these new, you know, rarities and all the stuff that they tried to do to like big up the comic book market, which caused it to crash, ironically. Like all the things they tried to do to make it make a lot of money, and then ended up damn near bankrupting Marvel. And but they like the cleanup batter of that was some fantastic stories, some fantastic artists coming into the game. Like Salvador Larroca came in 97 on X-Men, and even on he went to Fantastic Four after that, and like he was killing it. And I loved his stuff then. And Carlos Pacheco was there, kind of in that era, and then he ended up doing the DC stuff and just some really incredible stuff since then. But it was one of those things, like, I feel like I feel like history. Like I was there before anybody knew about him. Like I was riding for Salvador Lorica before anybody else was, And so it is now. He did a variant cover of Daredevil 25, which I'm going to spoil for everybody if you didn't read it. Elektra becomes Daredevil at the end. Very interesting. It's like it's a guilt thing. It's a guilt thing, right? It's themes. Matt goes to prison and she becomes Daredevil. But he did a variant cover, and it's a good piece. Of course, it's Salvador, but like it's just a piece of Daredevil on a Daredevil comic. Like it's nothing special about the cover, but because it's the first issue, that variant's selling for like $300 on eBay. Like it's one of those things. Like I remember he was like the fill-in artist on X-Men. It was an interesting growth period. But like I've kind of been through like a lot of ups and downs in the comic book space, especially with X-Men. There's a whole era that everyone apparently wants to write off, and I actually thought it was really good. So like I feel like I'm the odd man out every time somebody talks about it was, I think the
Joss.
No.
Joss Whedon.
It was before Whedon, because it was the.
There was Morrison, and then there was Joss, and then prior to Morrison.
Morrison left.
Oh, okay.
It was Morrison left, or was it before Morrison? Because it was, I think it was Chuck Austin. And everyone talks shit about that run. Everyone talks shit about that run. Whereas I thought the Draco, which like explained Nightcrawler, was a great story. But nobody liked it. Apparently I'm the only guy. Like everything around that era where it's like Nightcrawler became an ordained priest, but then he didn't. It was like a whole mind game thing. I actually thought it was really interesting stuff. I did not love Angel being romantically involved with Husk. Thought that was really weird and uncomfortable because they don't really say who is how old. And last time she was around, she was on a teen group, so I wasn't a big fan of that. But other than that, like I liked Angel having regenerative health abilities. Like that was super interesting that everyone seems to have forgotten about. Like he went to a clinic. He went to a clinic and he was like, draw as much blood as you can, give it to as many people as will accept it. Like, let's heal some motherfuckers. Because he's like, I got a healing factor. Let's put it to fucking good use. And like half the kids with cancer got cured. And I was like, this is the shit X-Men should be doing.
Yeah, Wolverine.
Yeah, like what the fuck are you doing, Wolverine? Wolverine's just like, nah, I like to get blown up every once in a while and reconstitute.
Yeah.
Like...
Yeah, the X-Men continuity is just... I mean, I haven't been into comics and just gotten back within the last 5-6 years, but I've done my fair share of catch-up, so I know everything. I've read a lot of the big runs and stuff, and these continuities for just, Marvel in general, or if you break it down to X-Men, it's insane, man.
It's
how many changes and things, and that's why it's pretty refreshing to see Hickman's take on stuff. I mean, I'm already a big time Hickman fan, so I'm probably pretty biased. But
I'm psyched.
What he's doing with X-Men, I feel like it's fresh, kind of.
Dude, it so is. It's funny too because right as like the last Uncanny title started before the Hickman run, I was like, wait, hold on. I'm like, Cyclops is back. Jean's back. They both died. I was like, well, till death do us part. So their marriage is dissolved. They both died. Even Wolverine died. All three of them died. They're
dead for a while too.
I was like, they all died. They all came back. I was like, if you just put them in like a polyamory thing, like we won't even have to deal with this whole nonsense love triangle. Every time Wolverine kisses Jean, it won't be a specialty. It won't be everyone freaking out. Oh, he kissed Jean. And then Hickman shows up and he's like, everyone's fucking whatever. Hickman's just like,
that's one of my
it's
favorite
just
parts.
A thing now. Like they all live together on the moon. I was like, I am here for this. I am here 150% for this. I love this era. I love Hickman's style in general because he does these arc, like he's like, I have this grand plan of what I want to achieve, and I'm just gonna do it all. And here's like the little peppered in details, because I love his run pre-civil or pre-Secret Wars thing, because I think he wrote Secret Wars. But
Yeah,
like
Fantastic Four, Secret Wars, Avengers,
dude, that stuff
whole
was fantastic. Right. I love.
Yeah.
I had the idea of the Avengers form teams, and they start doing, you know, like response teams years ago, which is, I love, like this. I feel like I'm providing this to the universe. I just think about it for a while, and then a few years later, somebody does a series, and I'm like, I'm okay with it. I don't need to write it as long as it gets written. I just want to read this stuff. But like, you know, when they did the whole Avengers world, I love that idea. Like he created this whole big framework, and then it's like, you know, cannonballs on the fucking Avengers, like sunspots on the fucking Avengers. Like, let's just do it. Fuck it. And I just really like that overarching concept. So you guys were saying that there is a big overarching plan and plot for this series, for the anthology. There is an overall theme. How long is this going to run? When can we expect a trade? I'm that guy, so I got to get my trades, you know.
You waiting for me? Okay. Yeah, I mean the overarching theme really for. Can you talk? Are you guys hearing me?
Yeah.
Oh, I think Zach might be muted or something. You good, Zach?
Oh, he froze. There he is.
Hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, there we go. I hear you now.
He froze again.
He froze.
Okay, cool.
There he is.
Again?
Okay. Yeah, I think we're good now. Yeah, so I mean the overarching theme really, aside from, you know, the project that might have came out of this that we kind of tabled, and then the original project, the theme overall is just you know, some questions are better left unanswered, you know. So, you know, Zach mentioned we'd meet up at Barnes, and we, you know, aside from, you know, working on the comic and stuff, we talk, and we're both heavy sci-fi lovers and all that. So we discuss our different, you know, beliefs and things of that nature. And really, that's what the anthology is just a means of us to be able to tell these types of stories. But they're kind of like our answers to some of these questions that, you know, you might not necessarily want the answer to. So a little bit of like a darker twist to it, in the same vein as like Black Mirror or something like that.
I literally was just thinking that. I was like, it's like some of those episodes are definitely one of those, like, I didn't want to think of that far ahead. I didn't need to know what would happen if we went down this road.
Yeah.
Like.
Yeah. So similar in that nature. Black Mirror is a pretty big influence for us. Ice Cream Man by Image Comics, another great anthology book that they're putting out, is another big influence. But
I've seen it. I've seen it. I have not perused that one. I've seen it. I always thought it was a weird title, so I was like, I don't really know what to do with this. Like,
I thought the same too. I definitely almost judged that book by its cover when I first saw it, but I picked it up on a whim, and I've been down for the ride ever since. So I definitely recommend checking that out. But as far as the trade goes, you know, we're doing these. We have 5 issues lined up for this series. Taking it one Kickstarter at a time. So, you know, issue 2's in development, in the early writing stages, and then hopefully we can get a few more out, a few Kickstarters out next year for the 2nd and 3rd issues, and then once that's concluded and we're at 5, then we'll look into releasing a trade. But we also want to kind of shop it out there to see if, you know, some publishers are maybe interested. You know, I think that's the end goal for a lot of Kickstarter folks out there, to be picked up by a publisher and have them kind of take care of the distribution aspect of it.
I feel that.
'Cause it's, yeah. So it'll be interesting, but that's kind of like our plan right now.
I feel that. Now, obviously the legwork of distribution and publishing being handled by an Image or a Dynamite or whoever. Obviously, huge benefit for you guys, less work. Like, you get to just submit the stuff and they get it done. And this is purely like conceptual of a question, but like, is it worth it to give up that cut and that control? I ask because I looked into Image and like their policies and as far as like how they bring in books, and one of their things is they get to basically override you on the logo and the name, and that did not sit with me because like I had I had an idea as far as the presentation, and I was like, if they just out of hand disagree with the name or the logo, like that's not gonna work out. Like, it just doesn't end well for anybody, because then we've all spent time and then they say nah, like, and if I sign a contract, I gotta do it, and then it's like I'm not happy with what I'm producing. So I guess that is my question is are you married to any of it as far as like the name or the logo or like any of the stuff that could be changed? I guess like the visuals on top, like the layout, stuff like that. Because I really think like a lot of the stuff you guys are using is very interesting. I love even the Kickstarter. I actually thought the first time I looked at the Kickstarter, I thought it was like not rendering properly, because you got like colons and parentheses and slashes, and I was like, is it not rendering the site right? I'm like, is my browser broken? And then I was like, oh no, this is on purpose. Like, I dig this. This is like, it's such an interesting presentation. So is this something where if Image was like, yeah, we'll do it, but like you can't call it Deep Theory, like how does that conceptually, like, you can change your mind tomorrow, like when we're done with this conversation, but I just mean like conceptually, if Image was like, hey, we'll do it, we'll publish you guys, but you got to change the name.
Yeah,
well,
honestly,
go ahead, Zach.
I was just gonna say, like, I would be okay with it as long as we could have Andres Juarez, who did our logo. If we could have him redo it, to what it would be, because I wouldn't want to put his, like in the background, or like forget about his, which is what made bring it to life. So
Andres Juarez is actually the head of like the graphic design element, or head of design rather, for Skybound. So I hope they wouldn't be. I hope they wouldn't.
So more than likely, that wouldn't be a situation for you guys.
I would hope not. That's their guy. So.
Wow, that's super dope. And is that somebody? I mean, again, I'm just curious about how these connections get made. Is that somebody you guys knew, or is it just like you reached out to him and said, "Hey"?
He was another person. I mean, like we just reached out to because we saw some of his IG ads, and we were like, oh, and then we started checking him out, and then we sent him just a little message, and then he got back to us. So, I mean, it's just maybe it was just like good timing for everybody at the time. So it's kind of interesting.
Like it sounds like it, man.
Yeah,
that sounds super dope. So like. Is besides you guys clearly knew each other for a while. Everybody else is just like, you guys reached out and said, hey, we got this thing. I need a colorist, I need a letterer, etc. Like, you just reached out to everybody?
Yeah, we did. Much. Yep. Yeah, Wes actually did all the interiors in their entirety. So he did the roughs, pens, and the inks and the colors as well. And then,
wow, okay. That's that triple threat, man. That's that triple threat.
Yeah,
I dig that. I dig people who can execute the whole thing, because it's very interesting to see people like that who, will do a book like this, and then you see kind of their whole range when they do it, and then you see them inked by someone else and colored by someone else, and you kind of see the like importance of every stage and kind of what everyone brings to the table. Because for me, like the like best X-Men combination is sounds so stupid because he like hasn't done comics in so long. But Joe Mad and Tim Townsend, and Joe Mad, like Tim Townsend inking over Joe Mad's art. Shit. Ah man, that's my jam. Like if they did an X-Men book now, I'd buy every single copy, even though I don't collect singles. I would. I swear to God, I would. Like, oh, you got variant covers? I'll buy 3. Fuck it. Like that's my shit. Like when he went to when he did Darksiders, and unsurprisingly, Darksiders is my favorite video game series. So like he just did what's it called, Airship, and now they're doing Battle Chasers as a game. And it's not even my style of game, and I still played a shit ton of hours on it because it's just like I love his art. So like just seeing it, and I spend time just staring at it. So like that kind of combination of the specific kind of art and kind of what everybody brings to the table from an art perspective is very important, because I could definitely see, like looking at some of the preview pages here, I could definitely see like if you had like an Art Thibbert or a Tim Townsend, like they would look very different, you know, like as far as the inks, because they just do have a different inking style. Like there's just no way around that. You can't get away from, you know, you can't, unless they were like, all right, I'm gonna do this exact thing, just like go off the, you know, reference page, because they're gonna bring in their own character, they're gonna bring in their own little flavor as far as when it gets inked. Because I've seen a bunch of different artists, you see their pencils and you're like, why does this look so weird? And then you're like, oh, because the inker moved the mouth, changed the shape of the eye a little bit, like little stuff that you don't think about by itself, but then when it all comes out, you're like, I remember like the cover did not look like this piece, but there it is, that was the original piece, and it kind of blows you away. But that's cool to have that whole kind of pipeline from just one person. But I imagine it takes longer to get pages then.
Yeah, it does. This turnaround's not too bad really. So, but yeah, it's just, I mean, going into the project especially, we just kind of lucked out in finding him and finding someone that can do all 3. Because, you know, this is our first comic too, so, you know, we don't have necessarily that eye to see, okay, is this inker gonna pair well with this pencils, or, you know, how is this colorist gonna fare with the inks and all that. So we definitely lucked out finding Wes.
Shut up. Sorry about that. Freaking dogs. Oh man. Life with dogs.
Yeah, I hear you.
That's been an interesting part of this year, right? Is having to live life for everything. Like I work from home, like my day job is from home anyway, so like for me it's not been very different. But my wife is like on a call for her work, and then, you know, the mailman shows up and the dogs lose their mind, and it's a whole different world for her. You know, she's had to be like, hold on a second, let me calm these dogs down so I can talk to you without dogs.
Oh,
but
man.
I wanted to get into a couple other topics with you guys. Since you are comic book creators, I always want to touch on this concept because I think it's very interesting, where the supposed origins of it and the supposed kind of idea of it is very interesting to me, versus the execution and kind of the community that's been behind it. Comicsgate. There's not really a soft way to get into that topic. Most people have an idea of what it means when they hear it. But so I have talked to people from the Comicsgate community and kind of their thoughts on it and their ideas, and the premise, from what I understand, the premise has been that they did not like how their favorite characters at Marvel and DC, etc., were being written. They didn't like how they were doing, you know, some of the changes, whether it's their supposed forced diversity or how they like whatever other excuses they want to put out there. But so on on a basic level, they didn't like how these characters were being written, so they were leaving. Right, they were backing out. You had, you know, big names like Ethan Van Sciver, whatever the hell his name is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
He was like, I'm quitting. I'm gonna go do my own book. And I thought that was really funny, because even in the 90s, Cyberfrog was a fucking joke. So like, I just personally thought that it was funny that he was like, oh, I'm gonna go do my own book, and I was like, you're gonna go do Cyberfrog? Really? That's what you could do something else.
Yeah.
Come up with something new, something good. But so the execution has been less than ideal because it's been basically a lot of shit talking, and then they start using words like forced diversity and all this other nonsense, and then the fandom, as it always does with most fandoms, is even more toxic than the idea, and they did some shit that you just don't do in political in polite society. People got death threats, people got bullied online and in person, all sorts of dumb shit, and I guess my question to you guys is, what do you think is kind of the role of the indie comic space when it comes to stuff like that, when it comes to these kind of extreme ideas coming from the fandom and sometimes even other creators?
Yes, we're not super familiar with comic skates. I mean, I pay attention to, I browse Reddit and stuff, so I might hear things here or there. But I mean, ultimately, we got into this whole thing because we can write what we want to write, and that's ultimately why we appreciate the position we're in right now, is being able to tell these stories in a respectful manner. These stories that we want to tell, and that's just kind of been our focus, is doing that with having as much respect for everybody and their beliefs and stuff. We're not trying to cross any lines or anything of that nature necessarily, but I just think that's truly like the best part about being an indie writer, is that you have that freedom rather than working for maybe Marvel or DC, where you might not. You have an editor, you have editorial telling you what you have to, this issue has to be about, or what Batman is going to do next, or something like that, So something that I don't take for granted. But I think we are mindful to other folks and their opinions and stuff like that. It just isn't something that really has been in our peripheral, because we're focused on, we're still learning, really,
I feel
we're still learning to write. And we're going to continue to do that, and continue to grow as writers, so we can put out content that, ultimately we want to share it with everybody. I've shared it with Zach many times, but my dream has always been to be able to walk into a store and see my comic there, and then talk to people about it. I want to talk to people about it, because like I said, if it's something derived from my fears, I'd love for people to come and talk to me and ask me questions about it. And that's truly what we're kind of in it for, is just that kind of experience, and getting it out there and then sharing it with the world, really.
That's dope. See, and I agree with that. I dig that. You got to be focused, especially with 11 days to go.
Yeah.
You got to be focused. You got to get this Kickstarter done. And that's kind of been my perspective as well. Is the indie space is not new. Like, this didn't just show up this last year, in the last 2 years. Like, it didn't just appear overnight. So it's just been very interesting for me to see, not even just fans, because I feel like fans, more than even the creators, should be able to just pick a different book to read. Like, if you don't like the way Captain America's going, or Batman, or whatever, just pick a different book. There's thousands of books on the market at this point. Especially, like, I realized the last 6 months, there's even more books than I thought a year ago. Like, it's just, there's so much out there. And like, to your point, from so many different perspectives, about so many different things. It's not always just capes. Like, there are so many stories in the comic book format that you can read whatever you want to read. There's whatever you are feeling at the moment, you could read a comic book about. Almost certainly. Like, you can find a book that covers just about any emotional time you're going through, or conceptual time you're going through, whatever. So, like, I've always thought that, like, I jumped into, like, a live stream that a couple of creators were doing, and they were talking about, so the way I, like, got into this, because I didn't know this was a whole thing for a long time. This was apparently a thing for like 6 to 8 months before I even found out about it. but I'm in a comic collector group or whatever on Facebook, and somebody posted something like, "Oh, Mike S. Miller was kicked out of the Grand Rapids Comic Con," and I was like, "Wow, okay." I didn't know like people got kicked out of Comic Cons. Like I was like, he's an artist. Like you just Artist Alley. Like you get the table cost.
Yeah.
Like I don't even know. Like I've seen some
Exactly.
artists that I don't like at Comic Cons. Like, that doesn't mean they should get kicked out. That seems silly. And then somebody shared a tweet of Mark Waid being like, "Good." Like something about like animals like him shouldn't be allowed at conventions. And I was like, what the fuck did he do? Like, how bad is this dude?
Yeah.
Like, is he like punching babies? Like, what is he doing? I don't get why are they so mad at him? So I'm like, let me like go and check out this dude's content and see like what is, because they went on, basically the whole thing stemmed from a podcast that he did where he had a dude on talking about what, you know, they were coming at it from, we think is forced diversity and, you know, characters being gender bent and whatever. And so they were coming at it from like, we don't like that. And there was some dude who came on, and it was a black guy that came on, and they kicked him off the podcast. To be very honest, the guy wasn't making a lot of sense. He wasn't saying anything. He just kept repeating like a few statements. So they kicked him off, but then he like said some ignorant shit. He said something about like he doesn't know his dad. And I was like, that's fucking stupid. Like, what a stupid thing to say.
Yeah.
Like, that's an ignorant fucking thing to say. But I was like, but Mark Waid just as bad. Like, he called this dude an animal. Like, what the fuck? Like this is not that serious. This comic books, guys. Like, this is not that fucking serious. But I was like, all right, so like this dude's like not my favorite dude, but let me like watch his content, like see where Mike Miller is coming from. And he was on a thing, and they were doing a live, and I asked the question. I was like, hey, you know, I see like you guys have, you know, an interesting perspective. I don't necessarily agree with you, but like, why not just do your own books? I was like, I can't be the first one to like tell you this idea. Like, I can't be the first guy to like give you the idea of just like make your own comic. Because what he ended up doing was he ended up doing his own like Captain America kind of dude, like, you know, government project super soldier thing. And I was like, why didn't you just do this a year ago when you got mad the first time? And one of the people in their live was like, well, you weren't here a year ago. I was like, I needed to tell you? Like indie comics didn't just show, I didn't just invent indie comics for you. Like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
Like, I needed to be the one to tell you. He's like, you weren't here a year ago when this started. I was like, why wasn't someone just being like, yeah, we can just make our own book? Because that, I remember even in Wizard mags back in the day, they would have ads for like the shittiest comic books. You look at it and you're like, I would never read that. That looks like it was drawn by a 7-year-old. But it's an ad in Wizard. So they got to be making money somehow. Somebody was buying those books. So I was just like, indie comics have been around. Indie comics almost destroyed comic books back in the 90s because everybody wanted to put out comic books. And sometimes, most of the time in the 90s, they weren't that good. You know, the quality has definitely seen an upswing for sure. But like, I just was blown away. I was like, and it was funny because the perspective of, oh, I don't like how this book is being done. I don't like how this character is being done. I always think that's funny because it's like, you don't have to like this. You don't have to like this run. There's 30 years or 20 years or 80 years of this character. You got back issues to read. You ain't read all of it. You don't like how Batman's being drawn or written or whatever. Sure. But there are 80 years of Batman. You haven't read all the books. You got plenty of reading.
Yeah. Wait till the next writer comes in. You know,
Exactly.
Things are constantly changing in the comic world, right? In regards to these characters and who they are or what they're doing and stuff, different arcs and all that. So
100%.
just wait it out.
100%. That's it. Like blew me away, the whole concept of it. Just like everyone, like the fans especially, because I mean, I get it. You are reading a book and it's a certain way. You know, everybody got mad when Iceman was gay. I was like, really, it makes a lot of sense. Like if you kind of go back through his behavior, it's kind of funny because they were like, Iceman's gay. I was like, that makes sense. That makes a lot of sense. Like going back to like there was scenes during that Chuck Austin run. He got injured and North Star was like hitting on him, like hitting on him. And he got like super defensive about it and like kissed the doctor to like prove himself or something. And I was like, now that makes sense. Now that scene makes sense. I get it. like this whole like pattern of behavior makes sense now. And it was just like people got so mad. Oh, Iceman's gay. Like, how can you do that? Who cares? What does it really matter? Like, it's a fictional character at the end of the day.
Yeah, they're all fictional characters. Yeah.
Exactly. Like, if it turned out Sherlock Holmes was, I don't know, a baby killer, it's a fictional character. Like, I like Sherlock Holmes, but then I'd be like, all right, well, now I guess I'm not reading Sherlock Holmes no more. I'm not going to read this book because I don't like the way this is being done. Cool. I'm going to move on to the millions of other books to read. Like, it blew me away. But it was just like, I do see kind of like where the like impetus for that perspective, because I have seen situations where I'm like, I read this book and then the next issue, this is way out of character. Like, the next writer just like doesn't know what's going on. And that can be jarring, and that can be like what they did with Batgirl. Was not a big fan of that. Like, I read the New 52 era back to back, all as one, in like 2017, 2018.
Yeah.
It was a task, I'll tell you that. But I read stuff that I'd never read Swamp Thing before, so I never read the Alan Moore run. But like, I read the Swamp Thing book, and it was one of the best books. Aquaman was one of the best books. Frankenstein, Agent of Shade was one of the best books.
Yeah.
I thought like Superman, the Action Comics was meh. Like Superman, meh. Like all of the main books were just okay. But like the like weird off the beaten path stuff was great. And I was like, this is the shit people need to be reading. Like, I don't even know why you're mad. Because, like, I was reading Batgirl, and then they put that new artist and new writer on, and all of a sudden, Batgirl, who literally up until that issue was graduate school, like, a grown-up, and literally, like, the last panel of the previous issue, she's like, I'm not going nowhere. You're family. I'm going to be here. You're safe. Next issue, all right, peace out. I'm out of here. You'll be okay. I was like, what the fuck just happened? Like, how is this the same person? And then the artist that they brought on is like such a drastic shift. And then they changed her costume. And I was like, she looks like a 15-year-old girl. And then all of a sudden, the whole arc was about how she got onto social media. And I was like, it was hard. It was genuinely hard to read. And I was like, I don't like when Batgirl is hard to read. Like, there's certain books I couldn't read because I was just like, nope, can't do it. Like, they did a like super kiddie version of Bizarro. Couldn't like, I read 3 pages and I was like, I just can't do this. And then, but guess what? I didn't like have a fit about it. Like, I didn't.
I mean, that's comics at the end of the day. I mean, having read and reread and gone back and have read a lot of the older stuff in the 80s and 90s, and things just are constantly changing.
Yeah.
Especially when you're reading modern comics now. And even in modern comics, you have one event that wipes everything clear, and then you're resetting. So that's just what it is.
As much as I love Hickman, that was that Secret Wars. I loved the Avengers World era, and then Secret Wars, and now we're like starting from scratch, and we got like weird jumbled teams of Avengers, and it wasn't my favorite era. But then, honestly, I loved Sam as Captain America. What the hell was that? Secret Empire. Not a big fan of Secret Empire. Didn't like how it ended. All of a sudden, Steve Rogers is a spirit. That was weird. Like, just not a big fan of that. Like, it didn't.
That's just comics, man.
Yeah,
it's comics. At the end of the day, it's
right?
comics.
Exactly right. I didn't like throw a fit. It blows me away. Like, because everybody was like, oh, like when Cap said Hail Hydra, I was like, I'm interested to see where this goes, because to me that's storytelling. Something's weird, something's different, and even if you read that issue, they had that flashback whole thing. I don't know if you read those the run.
Yeah, I read it.
But they had those flashbacks to like, this is where the change happened. Like, the changes was done in his history, and that's why he's always been Hydra. Like this is very self-explanatory. Like, why are you mad is where I was coming from. Because I was like, why are people mad about this? Like, this is pretty much just plain black and white on paper. Like, this is not hard. Like, this isn't deep, complex math. Like this is 2
It's
plus 2.
changing the status quo. Really, people don't
100%,
like change.
100%. And I actually argued with a dude. I always forget his damn name. Jeff something. He does a thing called Artcasters, and he was talking about how he's like, oh, I took my son in to buy Captain America comics, and Captain America's black, and he's like, he can't read comics about the Captain America that he saw in the movies, and I was like, sure he can. There's 73 years of white Captain America.
Yeah.
You just pick any one, pick any year, any issue, like plenty of them. What are you talking about? Like, it just didn't make any sense to me. I was like, the anger is coming from nowhere. Like, you're just mad about nothing. Like, I did not like the Captain America book, like the Sam Wilson Captain America book. Thought it was told from a really dark perspective, and I get, like, I've thought more about it, and I'm like, I can kind of see, like, we're kind of seeing it from his perspective. It definitely, I could understand how it could be like, it might feel for him that everyone's against him. So that's the only thing that we are shown. And that the only people that are riding for him are the people in the hood and the black people. I get that. But just like, it didn't feel like realistic enough. Like the show where they're going to do the Falcon and Winter Soldier, to me, that feels like they're coming at it more from a perspective of the government says, all right, we're going to have our own Captain America. He gets the shield. You don't get the shield. And that's where the debate is. And I'm like, all right, cool. We have a bad guy. The bad guy is the government trying to like maintain control over Captain America versus in the comic, it would just felt like all of America was against Sam Wilson except the people in the hood. And I was like, I mean, like, not all of America. Like, I'm sure there would be people who'd be mad about it, but not all of America. Like, that felt really like one-sided. So, but again, that ended, and now I'm more than anything mad about his stupid new costume. Like, I don't like the new Falcon costume, and I also didn't like the fact that he went like back to Falcon. Like, I liked him as Captain America. We could have had 2 Captain Americas. I wasn't mad about it, but like you said, status quo. People don't like that status quo change. I want to ask one silly question. This is a super silly question for Zach. Your name, it threw me off on Facebook. Your name on Facebook is backwards, and I read it earlier today, and I was like, it's like a rap name, and I love it. So I just want to know, do you rap? And if so, do you go by Young Zachary? Because I dig that so much. I read it, and I like said it out loud. I was like, yo, that's like a rap name. I'm into this.
All right.
What about you? In the meantime, what about you, Vish? Do you into rap?
I'm into rap. I don't rap.
You don't rap.
You know, Zach and I've known each other since kindergarten, but we've been good friends since I'd say like middle school. And it's in middle school actually where he kind of got into the whole rap scene, and then I myself try to make beats and stuff, load up FL Fruity Loop Studio,
Hell yeah.
try to make beats and all that, but I haven't dabbled in much rap or anything like that. So
maybe vertical works better for audio. So yeah, started making music. Me and Vishal actually in middle school. I don't know if Vishal, you already mentioned that.
I told him I try to
we were
make
just,
beats
like,
and stuff in FL and Fruity Loops.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah, and then I just started writing. So, because Vishal went to another school, and then I went to another high school. But I continued writing like poetry, and then I got into actually making music, like it's like messing around with like Fruity Loops, and then had some other programs. But it was just super fun. That's what I would do. What I would want to do if I had another job. But yeah, and I used to do it all the way up until I was like 25. Still do it to express myself, like when I'm alone, just to make me feel, empowered again. Cause yeah, but yeah. You guys hear me still? Or?
Yeah. That's we gotta do like a collab or something together. I've been working on a mixtape for like 20 years. Like 18
Oh,
years. 18 years. I started rapping when I went to college. My one of the guys on my floor challenged me while I was drunk to a battle, and I was like, I can't fucking battle. I'm like, I don't have that kind of quick thinking ability. Like, I'm not there. And so we ended up doing like aim battles back and forth on aim. So I'd send him a couple lines, he'd send me a couple lines, and that just like it got me thinking. So within the next few years, I ended up doing door-to-door sales, and one of the other guys was into rap. So we would write and do like battle verses over the walkie-talkie while we were out on the trails and stuff. So it was just kind of something that kind of built up, and over time, I was like, I'm gonna do this mixtape, and I had to rename it because everybody I told the name of it to, I was like, it's too deep and it might like bring up some negative connotation for people. I was gonna call it the Pearl Harbor mixtape because the sneak attack, like you didn't see it coming. But people were like, nah, you shouldn't call it that. It might be a little offensive. I was like, I guess, but I don't know, man. Like I felt like it was a strong name.
sneak attack.
But
I
yeah,
like that.
I do the same thing. Like I write. It kind of just hits me, honestly. Like for me, that's why it's taken so long. Like I have a few songs done, but it's like when it hits me, like I wrote the intro on a whim, and it just like hit me one day, and I wrote it, and I was like, that's the intro. Like, because like most of the time, if I'm writing, I'm like a line here and there, like I hear a beat, and I'm like, all right, cool, and I just start flowing to it. But nothing comes of it. But then there are times when it's just like my mind just falls into rhyme, and that's where for the next like 3-4 days, that's all I'm doing and I write a whole thing. I used to do. I've been getting like the itch again because I get emails from rap battle forums, is rapbattles.com. And there was the one thread that I was a part of is apparently still alive to this day, which is like 17 years later. But it's called Diss the Bitch Above You. And it was the whole thing was like you're supposed to do up to 6 bars or whatever against the last person that posted. So I see him dropping and I see like all these garbage verses. I'm like, I feel like it's time for me to jump back on there and just like teach him a lesson real quick because that's what it feels like every time I jump on is like the last, 20 posts are just garbage. And I'm like, I'm so much better than you motherfuckers.
But that's cool though. Yeah, like that's how you get inspired, like to be better, right? To be better than who you were yesterday. But yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about, like thinking in rhyme, and like once you get in that zone, you just start thinking. I mean, like even your sentences just come out. But like, Hamilton, like how they perform on stage and how it was written with the music and everything.
Yeah.
And that's like very fluent in rhyme and the construction of music and the literature aspect of it, storytelling as well. So,
Dude,
but it just comes, once you get in that mode.
I love it, dude. I love that you brought that up because I feel like my wife makes fun of me because she wanted me to go see it. And I was like, nah, I'm not, because I'm a big dude, obviously. Like, I was like, I'm not going to fit in those chairs. And she was trying to, like, arrange special accommodations or whatever for me. And then, it ended up just, like, not working out. And they finished the show. And they were like, all right, it's coming to Disney Plus. And I was like, see, I told you. Like, I was going to be able to see it one day. I watched it. It was fantastic. Just, it's outstanding. Like, the whole structure of it, like we talked about before, like the overarching like themes and stuff, the stuff that goes back and forth, and like the little references to previous songs. Love that shit. It's like, to me, that's like good comedy, right? Like you get a good comedian will refer to 5, 6, 7 jokes ago. Like a great comedian will tell you about shit from the last special. Like, like if you know, and that's the joke. The joke is part of it. So like, that's why I've been listening to the shit out of that. Literally, everybody's sharing their 2020 Spotify year, thing. And it was like the first 15 songs are all Hamilton. So it's like, that's my shit for sure. Like, I love it. I always think about, like what conceptually, like on a basic level, it seems like a simple thing, but to execute it the way they did is always like lovely to me. The George Washington thing where he says, I have the model of the modern major general. Like that, the way and the syncopation of that is so good. It's so good. Like I love that's my shit.
Just beautiful.
Dude, it's yeah, and it's been genuinely inspiring as well too, because it's like I've like looked into the letters that he wrote and stuff like that, and some of the shit is like the ego on the motherfucker was enormous. Like those pre-duel letters that they went back and forth, they're long ass fucking letters, dude. Like where he says like, here's a list of the 30 years of disagreements. That's a real thing that he sent him. He sent this man like a 10-page dissertation of like, here's all the shit we ever argued about. Tell me what you're talking about. Like, I was like, the fucking ego, but it was good. Yeah. It was good. It was like, I was curious about the Reynolds pamphlet. I was like, let me just like read this real quick. It's not a joke. It is a pamphlet. It is a lot of fucking information. This dude wrote a lot of shit just to be like, yeah, I had sex with her. I didn't steal no money. I was having sex with this woman. just to everybody. I was just like, that was extreme. It was an extreme response, I think, in that time. Like,
yeah.
But it's just, yeah, the structure, like I've watched a bunch of videos analyzing like the music and even the choreography. The second time I watched it, I was like, oh shit, the dancers are all part of this. Like, cause the first time I was like, oh, they're just dancing in the background, whatever. But then I'm like, they're acting out everything they're saying. This is amazing.
Yeah, it's crazy little piece. And like all the Easter eggs, like you said, when they all get threaded together, it's just, yeah.
I dig that. That's kind of like where, like to go back to your earlier reference, the Black Mirror, when you get to those last few episodes and it's like, oh, here's all the shit from these previous episodes in this museum. And then you're like, fuck, has this been happening in the same place? And it's like, then you start to try to like draw those strings together and you see like, they had the space thing was the space dude, the dude who was having his space adventures in his head was also the same technology they use when they did that torture for the one. I was like, dude, like it all like ties in very like sneaky ways. And I dig that shit so much. So, 5 issues on this to kind of go back to your book here. 5 issues you said, is that going to be, like a complete story? Is that going to be like, we are done here, our interwoven threads can all be seen? Or is it going to be like they fall off a cliff and now I got to wait 6 more months for the next one?
Well, it's very self-contained in that each issue is its own thing and kind of one shot. So, aside from the theme carrying over from issue to issue, you could pick up issue 1, 2, 3, or 4 and just read each one of them by themselves and not have to worry about reading the others necessarily. So that's kind of how we're structuring it. But I think we are writing these issues with the expectation that we can spin them off, so to speak, if we wanted to, into their kind of own story. So we are leaving a little bit more there. Hopefully when people read it, they want a little bit more too. So, but yeah, that's kind of how we're structuring it.
I dig that. That's dope. I appreciate, it's a good foresight. It's a good foresight. I think, especially kind of in the modern era where you don't, especially indie, like you don't have to go through, like we said earlier, you don't have to go through editorial to decide if you want to do a spin-off one shot or mini series or whatever. Like you could just be like, I really like telling this story and people seem to like reading this story. So we're just going to do a little more of this story. And
exactly,
you don't have to go through any kind of random approval process. So I dig that kind of world building, especially. I'm like I said before, the process for me is like the most important thing. So like having that world building already in place where you can just be like, hey, we're doing, issue 2, how you loved issue 2. Yeah, we're going to take that character and we're going to have him do this. And like people are going to be on board because, that's how Wolverine got hot. That's how, you have all these solo characters that got super hot off the appearance in the main book. And everyone's like, dude got claws. Let's go. like, whatever. But that's cool. I appreciate also that it's self-contained issues though. So that's going to be, I'm going to be able to, like, when this is done and delivered, I'm not going to be like scratching at my veins looking for the next hit. I'm actually going to be able to be like, all right, this was a great read, and I can just we can have another conversation about the story itself next time around, versus me being like, what's happening next? Tell me, I need it.
That's what we're hoping for.
Yeah.
For sure. Yeah.
No, and
Yeah, for sure.
that's also another great like tactic as far as just being able to say, hey, because I'm presuming here, but like after the Kickstarter's over and it's all done and published, is it going to be available through a website? If you need assistance with a website, holla at your boy. But I'm seriously like, is this going to be like, are you looking to go through like a Comixology or even just on your own? Which I personally, I say keep the money, keep the money, and the turnaround, from what I understand from the very several people that I've talked to that are in various stages of getting a book to Comixology. That shit takes a while because their reader does all that like fancy shit. So that takes like months.
Yeah.
So my thing would just be like, keep it yourselves and do it through an online store. You could sell through Instagram now.
Yeah.
I just thought that you could sell your comic through Instagram. Ooh.
Yeah, you can. We've been utilizing the store, not necessarily the store aspect of Instagram, but we're kind of set up as a store so we can promote some of our posts. But I think outside of that, we do have a website, so deeptheorystudios.com is up and running.
I was looking for that. I couldn't find it.
And yeah, it's up, it's live, and I think ultimately we will have the comics available, at least digitally, up there. I think our print run's going to be pretty decent this first time around for our first Kickstarter, so that we, kind of bundle things for the second Kickstarter as well. People, new folks jumping on issue 2 can go ahead and get the physical for issue 1. So we're trying to make sure we have extra copies of that, but
That's
also trying to maybe work with some of the local comic book shops too, and see if we can get some outreach there to our communities nearby at least.
That's dope. I dig that. So as far as like structuring the Kickstarter, so with the anthology that I was a part of, the guy that handled the whole Kickstarter thing, Mike Emmerich, old school friend of mine, like he did an outstanding job executing it. But he came with the concept of, we need to sell this many books for this much money to be able to print enough books to fulfill those orders. And like, I'm always curious as to the Kickstarter process for people. Like, were you just like, let's just set this is how much it's going to cost to print this many books, and we set that goal with like a little extra? Or was it a matter of like, because I think we ended up doing, our goal was like $1,600. It was just the literal like bare minimum. Like, if this many people buy a single copy of the book, we'll need this much money to print those books for those people. Like, it was like a super basic calculation to just be like, all right, the people that order this can get it. So is it something where you went like super hardcore into that, or were you just kind of like, we want to print out 1,000 books, we're gonna need this much money for that? Like, kind of where did that come from?
Yeah. So a bit of both, I guess. The art and everything, like we mentioned earlier, kind of came out of our own pockets and not looking to make that back necessarily. Kind of look at it as an investment in ourselves, really.
For sure.
And we understand we're at a point where we don't have a following, and that's just our biggest goal now. So as far as the print runs and all that, I think 1,000 copies is what we're looking at, and I think that should definitely cover what we have, how many backers we have so far. But also, like I said, we plan to include it in the Kickstarters down the road. Once COVID's done and over with, we want to go back to cons and give out copies at cons. And so
I miss cons so bad.
yeah, I did too, man.
You
And
guys got to make a point to come out here for C2E2. I'm gonna
oh yeah,
need
man, that's been me and my dad's dream, man, to go out there. It's awesome. But yeah, so I think mainly the Kickstarter number that we came up with is something that, okay, this is a good number to where we can fulfill getting everybody their comic, and then all the other merchandising, the stickers and the boxes, and the gold foil numerical issues and stuff like that.
I mean, like the stuff
So yeah,
that's coming with this stuff is super super cool. Like I love the little bits and bobs that are in the sets, the stickers. The box really. It like speaks to me in like weird ways. Like I'm a fan of like I bought like mystery boxes. Like I did loot box for the loot
yeah,
crate for a while. Like
yep,
I just like that experience. So that's just dope that you have that presentation. Like you're gonna open it up, all the books are in it, and like it's a cool feeling. I literally the other day was thinking about spending $200 on this Chris Claremont special edition leather bound thing where it was like they were gonna have a couple of his like main story arcs, but it came in this even bigger box thing, and I was like, just for the experience, I kind of want to spend the money. Like,
yeah, yeah.
it's yeah, I dig that presentation, man. Like all the stuff that's coming with it. I feel like I am not identifying this piece. So in the only one set, you've got a piece on the left here next to the retro cover. What is that? Am I crazy? I like don't get what that is.
Is it a pendant looking thing?
Could be.
Crystal?
Yeah. Yeah. Is it crystal?
Yeah. Zach, you
Blue
there?
mushroom pendant. Okay. Yeah, okay. I didn't read the first line. For some reason, I thought it was gonna be at the end, not at the top. Makes sense. No, that's dope. See, like that's cool. Like little stuff that, like I dig stickers. I actually I've been collecting cards and stickers from cons for years, and I went through them all early this year and like saved all the websites, like followed everybody on Instagram and Facebook and wherever they were at. And it was one of those things where I had like 4 to 5 years worth of cards and stickers from cons. And it was sad that like probably 15 to 20% of them were gone. Like this project doesn't exist anymore. This person's no longer working on it. They got a job somewhere and they're just not doing this thing anymore. And you're like, you can't fault the person for paying bills, but like this looked like a cool project. I really wanted to be into this.
Yeah.
But it's the early following that's needed. Like if we were on 11 days with $6,000 to go, that wouldn't feel the same.
Yeah.
That would not
Yeah.
feel the same, I'm sure. So like you are 90, 95. Hold on, let me refresh. Maybe you were even closer. 6668. So $6,668 with 11 days to go. Super super excited. I mean, obviously, no questions about whether or not this will get funded. This is going up this coming Sunday, so everybody listening, everybody watching, absolutely go support this book. Like I think that goes without saying. I think that's why we're doing this. I think if you're listening, you understand the purpose. We're trying to get these boys some money. But I actually I'm going to be talking to my comics guy as well. I'm going to send him the link because every time I see
awesome.
a dope project, I'm going to be like, hey, check out this retailer bundle. Because that's not even that much money. $100? Come on.
It's a steal, man.
It's nothing. It's nothing. And he's actually
And,
he's,
yeah, we
he's
really
actually really cool
appreciate.
about doing stuff like that. So like doing indie comics and stuff like that. He put up
Yeah.
the trade I was in, the anthology thing. So super signed. Ooh, signed? What? They're signed? That's special edition, man. We gotta sell those higher prices. That's dope, man. I'm super excited
man.
for you guys
Yeah.
to get this W. Yeah, like super hyped to read it. I'm really really interested in it. Just like, especially now that we have had this kind of more in-depth conversation about it, I'm even more like I'm gonna try and come at it from a analytical perspective. Like I'm trying to see where it's coming from. And I'm super excited, dude. Super psyched. I wanted to kind of I'm gonna put you on the spot a little bit since we're on recording. Since I am doing the Catalyst magazine, and I'll hit you guys with the links for that for sure, for the first volume. But I'm gonna be doing this second volume coming up, which will be dropping next month. And wanted to see if you guys would be interested. Do like a little quick interview in there, and then what we also do is we include, like last time I had Ichabod Jones full issue was in there. Russell was super cool to let me put that in there. And it's like I said, it's free. It's not making me any money. It's not making anybody else any money. Hopefully, it's making y'all some money because it'll get some people over to you. But like, yeah, I mean, it's really just I want to be able to share stuff like this with people. And if somebody didn't watch the podcast or listen to it and they get the magazine, they can see it that way. So if you want to, if you guys would be amenable, I don't even know what that word is. I don't know what that word means. I'm trying real hard to sound smart, but I'm just failing today, man. Whew. My vocabulary is poor. Well, we gotta. If you guys would be cool with it, like if you got like the first 3 pages, or like a key moment or something, just like from the beginning, just to kind of whet the appetite a little bit, and then send people your way.
Yeah, no, I'd say we'd be down for that for sure, and we appreciate it, man. Everything that you've done now, and even with the magazine and stuff like that, we're trying to get exposure as much as we can, and kind of build that following, and just get this out to the people, really.
Hell yeah, man.
So
we're gonna get it done for you, man. We're gonna get this done. We're gonna get you guys. We'll get you guys featured. I'm gonna share. I'm gonna share your stuff. I mean, I've been sharing your stuff, but I'm gonna share your stuff some more. And yeah, well, let's get this done. 11 days to go. Well, when you guys are listening to this, 9 days. Hopefully by then it'll be funded. So then you just gotta get that cream, get that frosting. Get a little icing on the top. And yeah, that's gonna be it for this one. Zach, Vish, thank you so much for being on. I appreciate you very much. Appreciate your time. And yeah, it's been a blast. I had a fantastic conversation with you guys. I appreciate you.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it, dude. Thanks for having us.
All right, we'll see you guys.